In one quiet part of the city, at the back of a simple, narrow street, there was a little store selling healthy food. It had been open for over 40 years and used to be well liked. But now, only a few loyal customers came for their usual treatments for sore joints. Sadly, it wasn't making enough money to cover the shop's rent anymore. The owner was a white-haired old man called Mr. Robbins, who lived in a flat above the shop. One evening, just before closing time, he sat at the counter with the day's meager takings and a pile of bills. He sighed and put his head in his hands. The door opened and a young woman entered. She was dirty, her clothes were torn, and she shivered in the cold. "Please help me," she begged him. "I've had nothing to eat all day." Mr. Robbins was a kind-hearted man, so he sat her down, brought her a hot drink, and made a bowl of porridge from the shop's last bag of oats. She looked around as she ate, taking in the empty shelves and the peeling paint on the walls. She finished the last spoonful and put down the bowl. "Thank you," she said. "You're very kind, and you have proved yourself worthy." There was a flash and a loud bang, and the room filled up with smoke. When it had cleared, the beggar was transformed into a beautiful young woman in a black velvet cloak. "Because you are a good man, I will help you," she told the astonished shopkeeper. From somewhere in her cloak, she took out a dusty leather-bound book and a cauldron. "Now, what can I make for you?" Mr. Robbins could only stare. "Come on," she urged. "What is it your customers most desire?" With an effort, Mr. Robbins pulled himself together. To stay young, I suppose." She flipped through the pages. He glimpsed recipes for soups and stews, but also love potion and memory tonic. Finally, she stopped at elixir of youth. She bustled around the shop, helping herself to ginger, rose water, primrose oil, and other ingredients, and tossing them into the cauldron. Finally, she muttered, "and a hair from a witch's head." She pulled out a single dark hair and added it to the mixture, which boiled despite there being no heat. Eventually, she presented Mr. Robbins with a tiny vial containing a clear liquid. "Mix 1 drop with half a pint of water," she said. "I will be back in a month to make more." Then, with a pop, she vanished. There was just enough for 20 doses. So he gave 1 each to the first 5 old ladies who came into the shop the following day. Within days, they returned and brought their friends. Their wrinkles were gone. The color had returned to their hair for the first time in decades, and they had the vigor and energy of people half their age. The young witch was as good as her word, returning every month to make more of the elixir. But Mr. Robbins could not keep up with demand, despite charging more and more for it. He thought that he might be able to make more himself, but it would be no good without the hair from the witch's head, and she refused to give him more than 1 at a time. Although he was now making enough money for a good living, Mr. Robbins grew greedy and resentful. On the witch's 5th visit, he was ready. He might not be able to make the elixir of youth, but he knew enough to mix a strong sleeping draught. As she appeared in the shop, he offered her a glass of wine to toast our partnership. She accepted and drank. He caught her as she collapsed, carried her up to his flat above the shop, laid her on his bed, and cut off all her hair. Going through her pockets, he found the cookbook. He ransacked his own shop for the ingredients he needed, and then busied himself in the kitchen, making bottle after bottle. When he had finished, he looked at the bottles on the table, under the table, on every surface. He had hundreds of doses and enough hair left to make many thousands more. What difference would one make now? He took a bottle and drank it. Instantly, he felt fresh energy course through his muscles. His back straightened. He took off his glasses and could see perfectly. He ran through to the bedroom, where he had a full-length mirror. His face was unlined, his hair chestnut brown. There was a groan from behind him, and he turned as the witch's eyes fluttered open. She looked at him sleepily, confused, and then she put her hands to her bald head. Her eyes widened as realization dawned. Mr. Robbins braced himself for her anger, but instead, she just looked sad. "You fool," she said. "You greedy fool." "I'm sorry," he said. "But can't you just cast a spell to regrow your hair? Give me my cookbook back." He went to the kitchen and returned with the book. "Turn to the last page," she said. He did. Inside the back cover, in an ornate script, was written, "Magic, freely given, brings comfort and health. But when taken by force, it means only death." A chill gripped his heart. "Take the magic back," he said, panicking. "I don't want it." She shook her head. "It's too late." When the shop hadn't been open for a week, the landlord asked the police to break in. They found only the body of a young man whose heart had suddenly stopped. No one ever worked out who he was, what he was doing there, or what had become of old Mr. Robbins. Small house on Brandon Hill. There was a brother and a sister who really cared about each other. When they were young, their mom passed away. Then their dad did too. They went to live with their great-uncle, who wasn't sober most of the time. Maybe only one day a week, and sometimes not even that. Going through tough times brought them closer, and they never got married because of it. They had owned a nice farm during their early adulthood, but as the years wore on, the sister's health almost completely failed her. So they had their property and moved on to the house on Brandon Hill, seeking medical care. Their doctor was skinny. Short-tempered, was especially angry with his patient, for he was unable to identify what exactly was ailing her, and left, after demanding $100 for his brief visit. The trained nurse stayed behind and said to the brother of the sick old woman,
"Seek the good fairy who dwells in the wood beyond our town. She can help you."
And so the brother went. The wood was a splendid and rather gloomy place. There were many big, forbidding trees that cast dark shadows, and the ground was covered in a thick, deep green and almost black layer of moss. The old man wandered around for so long that he began to wonder if the trained nurse had lied to him, and it was then that he decided to turn around and try to go home. But no, what about his sister? How could he go home without a cure for her? He couldn't. After this decision was reached, the brother walked on, and soon after that he stumbled upon a cave.
"This,"
he thought to himself,
"must be the good fairy's home."
and it was. The cave appeared to be quite dark on the outside, but once the old man stepped into it, he was surprised to find it was all lit up with a silvery sort of light. And he followed it to the heart of the cave. It was here he met the good fairy. The silver aura around her was so bright that the old man couldn't see her. He could only make out her slim silhouette and long waves of hair rippling from her head.
Please,
The old man began.
good fairy, I need your help.
Many have come to me, seeking my help.
The good fairy's voice was light and airy.
What is it your wish?
It is my sister.
The brother began.
She is fatally ill, and no doctor can help her. They do not know how. Can you make her better?
The good fairy guessed.
And why do you want her to live?
She is my sister. She is all I have. And why should I let anyone I love die without trying to save them first?
The good fairy spoke again, her voice as smooth as silk.
I see. Well, then I will warn you, I can only grant you one wish for free. It is the rule.
What is your wish specifically?
The old man stepped closer to the good fairy, eagerly.
Please, tell me what is wrong with my sister, how to heal her. Make her better, please.
That is more than one wish, and as I cannot personally heal your sister without breaking the rules I made with fate eons ago, then I will grant you your first wish, and only that.
What do you mean? Talking about breaking the rules? What fate?
Began the old man, but suddenly stopped. The fairy was growing brighter so that he had to close his eyes, and he turned around so that he would not be blinded. All at once, the bright glow in the cave dimmed greatly, and he turned around to see a stunningly beautiful woman with long, flowing black hair and a soft silver glow around her.
Her heart.
Announced the fairy.
Her heart is not working properly. She will not live much longer unless something is done.
She paused here, as though emphasizing something.
You must leave now if you are to see her again, alive.
That is it.
The brother was angry, and his face showed it.
I walked 300 miles so that you could tell me in the vaguest way possible what was wrong with my sister and that I should go. You didn't even tell me how to help her.
Oh, but that is where you were wrong.
The good fairy was fading. All the man could see was her white face and her dark eyes, but even that was disappearing now. Read between the lines, and she was gone. It was a very bitter and hardened old man who returned to the house on Brandon Hill, where his sister lay in her bed, dying. The brother bent down and lay his head on her chest, listening to her heart. He heard a sluggish, liquid bum bum, 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 and it was gradually decreasing in speed. The old man held his hand over his own heart now and felt the strong pulse inside of him. It was then that he realized what had to be done. He hurried and grabbed his coat. Time was, indeed, running out. 2 days later, the sister woke up in her bed, feeling very strange and sore. But she was awake. She noticed a pale blue envelope on the night table her brother had made for her, and feebly reached over to pick it up. Her name was written across the front, in her brother's scraggly penmanship. Dear sister, ran the letter. If you are reading this, then you lived through your surgery, and you will live at least another 10, maybe 20 years. You were supposed to dead as of right now, but that didn't happen, and if you read on, you will see why. I loved you too much to let you die, dear sister, but your heart was failing you, so I gave you mine. It had to be done, but do not be sad. We will see each other again one day. Until then, enjoy what life has to offer you, and if you ever need a favor, seek a cave in the wood. I have a certain friend there who may be of assistance to you. Until we meet again. Your brother.